Thank you so much, Michael. Well, my topic is faith in a time of pandemic. And I wonder what it is that would make you believe. What would make you believe in God? I asked that question to an atheist friend of mine, and he'd clearly been asked that question before because he had his answer on a hair trigger. I said, what would make you believe in God? He said, if God rearranged the stars in the sky to spell out the 10 Commandments, then I would believe. I wonder how you would respond to that. Well, as he said that, I actually had two thoughts all at once, which is very extraordinary for me. I mean, I usually average about 2 thoughts per month, but I'd had my third coffee by then. And I thought of taking the conversation in two different directions. One direction I could have gone in was to say to him, okay, you have raised the bar of faith up to galactic heights. Okay, fine. Have you considered the current arrangement of the stars? Have you considered that you are already in a miraculous harmony called the universe? And the fact that there are stars in any kind of arrangement and that you are there to observe them is a miracle orders of magnitude more improbable than anything the religions of the world have ever propositioned. I thought of going down that route. But then I thought better of it. I had this second thought, and this is the response that I voiced. He said, I'd believe in God if God spelt out the 10 Commandments in the sky. And I just asked him, would you like such a God? And his response was instant. No, I could never like God. But if he proved his existence in that sense, then I guess I would have to submit. That's the way that he thought. And at that point, we had great common ground because neither of us liked the God he disbelieved in. If you think God is the sort of God to pull a cosmic parlor trick and exert almighty power just to tell you, thou shalt not, I don't like that God either. But thankfully, that's not the God of the Bible. And that's not the God that I want to talk to you about today. I've got a Bible here, and I'd love to read to you a story about a famous doubter who came to faith. And I want to see, as I read out this story, you should have some John's Gospels with you wherever I go. I always insist that people have John's Gospels in front of them so you can crack open the Bible and get a look at it for yourself. So please do open that up to John chapter 20, verse 24. And we're going to look at a famous unbeliever who became a believer. And as I read this, I want you to ask yourself, what is it that made doubting Thomas believe? And what is it that's meant to make us believe? Okay, let's have a look. John chapter 20. Jesus has risen from the dead on Easter Sunday. This is 1 week later. Thomas doesn't buy the story. He's not believing it. And this is how it unfolds. John 20, verse 24. Now, Thomas, called Didymus, one of the 12, was not with the disciples when Jesus came. So the other disciples told him, we've seen the Lord. But he said to them, unless I see the nail marks in his hands and put my finger where the nails were and put my hand into his side, I will not believe. A week later, his disciples were in the house again, and Thomas was with them. Though the doors were locked, Jesus came and stood among them and said, peace be with you. Then he said to Thomas, put your finger here, see my hands, reach out your hand and put it into my side. Stop doubting and believe. Thomas said to him, my Lord and my God. Then Jesus told him, because you have seen me, you have believed. Blessed are those who have not seen and yet have believed. Jesus did many other miraculous signs in the presence of his disciples, which are not recorded in this book, but these are written that you may believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God, and that by believing you may have life in his name. Now, did you notice what it was that Thomas was demanding? Okay, he had a standard of belief. He thought that there was an evidential bar that Jesus had to get over. He wanted to put his hands into the side, the wounded side of the crucified Jesus, which is kind of an extraordinary thing to want to do. If I'm ever in hospital and I tell you that I'm ill, please just believe me. Please don't say to me, unless I put my hand into your wounded side, I will not believe. Please just believe me. Bring the grapes. That's all I want. Okay, I don't want you to do a Thomas on me. But what is Thomas doing here? Thomas, he wants to know that the one who has beaten death is the one who has gone through death and come out the other side. It's actually amazing. Thomas does not want to look to the stars in order to believe. He actually wants to look to the scars in order to believe. The scars of Jesus will make him believe. Now, isn't that different? That's totally different from my atheist friend. He wanted the stars to rearrange in order to spell out the Ten Commandments, an assertion of power and control from on high, because that's the kind of God he thought we're talking about. Thomas knew better. Thomas knew Jesus. Thomas knew he would encounter true divinity, not by looking to the stars, but by looking to the scars. The scars of Jesus, these battle wounds, these pledges that Jesus has gone to hell and back for us. These marks that Jesus has walked through the valley of the shadow of death and has come out the other side. It's when Thomas sees the scars that he starts to believe. We're thinking about faith in a time of pandemic, and you might think, there's no way I could believe in a good God when there's a pandemic out there. There's a pandemic out there. People are dying. How can anyone believe in a good God? That's a really good question. But I think the only way you can believe in a good God within this suffering world is to believe in this God, the God who has joined us in our valley of the shadow of death. Yes, we need to know that there is something on the other side of this veil of tears. We need to know that there is a feasting joy at the end of all things. But first we need to know that there is love that has come down, that accompanies us, that befriends us, that walks with us. Thomas sees the scars, and in seeing the scars, he says, verse 28, "My Lord and my God." It's this mountaintop moment of biblical faith. And what is Thomas looking at? Wounds, battle scars. Because it is the God of the cross that can make sense of a suffering world. There's a great writer of the 20th century called John Stott. He wrote over 40 books, biblical commentary, cultural commentary. And perhaps his greatest work was called The Cross of Christ. And in it, he talks about how he can believe in a good God in this suffering world. And the only way he can believe in a good God in this suffering world is because of the cross, because Jesus endured hell for us. He says, "I could never myself believe in God if it were not for the cross. The only God I could believe in is the one Nietzsche ridiculed as God on the cross. In the real world of pain, how could one worship a God who was immune to it? I have entered many Buddhist temples in different Asian countries and stood respectfully before the statue of the Buddha, his legs crossed, arms folded, eyes closed, the ghost of a smile playing around his mouth. A remote look on his face, detached from the agonies of the world. But each time, after a while, I've had to turn away. And in my imagination, I have turned instead to that lonely, twisted, tortured figure on the cross, nails through hands and feet, back lacerated, limbs wrenched, brow bleeding from thorn pricks, mouth dry and intolerably thirsty, plunged into God-forsaken darkness. That is the God for me." How can you have faith in a time of pandemic? You need to know that there is a God who has experienced our suffering and a God who has come through to the far side. You need both. You need the compassion and you need the conquest. You need to know he's been with you, and you need to know there is hope beyond this veil of tears. And Thomas looks to Jesus, who has conquered death, but still bears the marks of his crucifixion. still bears the marks of the God who has gone to hell and back for us. And he says, my Lord and my God. That's what did it for Thomas. I wonder what might do it for you. What would convince you that Jesus is Lord? Well, in the Bible, Jesus is Lord. It sounds very religious language, and it is. It sounds quite technical, but let me boil it down. According to the Bible, unless Jesus is Lord, death is Lord. Okay? Unless Jesus is Lord, death is Lord. What I mean by that is, do you ever play computer games? The basic kind of platform computer game is you go through a level, you get to the end of level 1, and you face a boss, right? And you got to defeat the boss somehow, okay? Your laser guns and everything. And if you get through this bad boss, you get to level 2. And at the end of level 2, there's another boss, and he's a bit bigger and a bit stronger, right? And then you get to level 3, level 4, level 5. By level 10, he's like nuclear powered, and you cannot defeat him. And whatever you throw at this big bad boss, he is undefeatable. And yet, if you're going to win the computer game, you need to defeat the big bad boss. According to the Bible, in life, there is a big bad boss, and its name is death. And it has never lost a battle, ever. It's the undisputed champion of the world. It defeats not only people and kings, but empires. It swallows us whole. No one has ever defeated it. And then Jesus comes along, and he claims to be resurrection. He claims to be anti-death. He claims to be the one who can conquer the big bad boss. And you think, I'm not sure I could believe that. How could I possibly believe that Jesus is bigger than death? Well, you might have noticed that at the end of our little passage, it says Jesus did many other miraculous signs in the presence of his disciples, but these ones are written down so that you may believe that Jesus is this death-conquering Messiah. Could you possibly believe that? Let me give you 3 reasons why I think you can believe that Jesus is indeed Lord. Okay, here are the 3 reasons. They all begin with H, okay? You can believe in this death-conquering Lord because of the heavens, because of history, and because of him. The heavens, history, and him. And as I point to the heavens, what I'm really saying is we already live in a life from the dead kind of a world. Therefore, it's not such a big leap to believe in a life from the dead Lord. We already believe in a life from the dead world. It's not such a huge leap to believe in a life from the dead Lord. Think of the heavens, and let me point to 4 different aspects of creation that are preaching to you about a life from the dead kind of Lord. First fact about the heavens, we've had everything from nothing. That's extraordinary. What an extraordinary miracle, everything from nothing. I happen to believe in the virgin birth of Jesus. This would be the virgin birth of the cosmos, and without a virgin. That's some going, isn't it? That's some going. Everything from nothing. I mean, it's the ultimate magic trick, isn't it? Nothing up the sleeve, no magician, just pure magic out of nowhere for no reason. Everything has come from nothing. Don't we already live in a life from the dead kind of a world? Everything's come from nothing. Order has come from chaos, okay? If we've come from a grand explosion, this is the most finely tuned explosion I've ever seen. When your mother told you to clean up your room because it looks like a bomb has hit it, she was not commending you on the finely tuned ordering of your room, okay? She was telling you that it's chaos. How has an explosion led to this finely tuned order? How have we got order out of chaos? You might want to press into issues like the fine-tuning of the universe. But as you're looking into them, you're basically discovering that this is a life from the dead kind of a world. An extraordinary and improbable life from the dead kind of a world. So we've got everything's come from nothing, order's come from chaos, life has come from non-life. As a Christian, I happen to believe that on Easter Sunday, the non-living Jesus came to life, right? On Easter Sunday, that one in the tomb rose again from the dead. The non-living Jesus became living. But listen, the story that is told of our human origins, the story that is told of the origins of life on earth, is that everything has emerged from non-life. All life has emerged from non-life. Okay, you think I believe in a miracle? Okay, we already believe in a miracle that is orders of magnitude more improbable than anything that Christians are saying. I just happen to believe that one figure has emerged from the dead, and I believe in a God of resurrection to pull off the miracle. You see, a lot of atheists say to me, I could never believe the Christian story. The atheist story is far more improbable. It's not just that one figure came to life from non-life, it's that all life came to life from non-life and without a God of resurrection to work the miracle. Listen, we already live in a life from the dead kind of a world. We already do. We've got everything from nothing, order from chaos, life from non-life, and we've got minds from mindless matter, consciousness from mindless matter. You know, the atheist philosopher David Chalmers, who is Australian as well, he says, look, to get from brains to minds is miraculous. How do you go from the water of the brain to the wine of consciousness? It's called the hard problem of consciousness for a reason. It's miraculous. How do you do it without a miraculous God? See, these four facts of the heavens, these four facts of creation are telling you we already live in a life from the dead world. It's not such a leap to believe in a life from the dead God. I could press into this more, but time is flying. The heavens tell you we live in a life from the dead world. History tells you we're living in a life from the dead world, okay? Here are some facts about first century history. Jesus was at times wildly popular, wildly unpopular. He was put to death by the Jews on account of blasphemy, but executed by the Romans on account of treason. He died on that cross. He was placed in a tomb. The whereabouts of that tomb was known. 3 days later, that tomb was empty, and his followers all had experiences of the risen Jesus, like Thomas had here. They all had experiences of the risen Jesus, which went on for another 40 days and then stopped when Christians say Jesus returned to heaven. And the story continued. The body was never found, and all the eyewitnesses stuck to their story, even on pain of death. Those are the historical facts. How do you explain them? And different people have different explanations for them. But I think the most rational explanation for all those facts is that Jesus did indeed rise just as he said he did. And in fact, it would be extraordinary if Jesus didn't rise, given who he is. We'll get to that. But I don't just point to the history of the first century. I point to history since the first century, because history since the first century has seen an extraordinary growth of the Jesus movement, which is extraordinary when you consider the source of it. Jesus, through human eyes, is merely a penniless preacher, homeless, shooting his mouth off around some backwater of a long-dead empire. He's surrounded by total losers and no-hopers like Thomas. Thomas is meant to be one of his chief spokesmen, right? Not even Thomas believes in him. Jesus is crucified in ignominy, aged 33 years old. And he's the most famous man who ever walked the planet. He has built the world that you live in. You might want to ask me questions about that, but he has. He's built the world you live in more than you know. And again, we've got this miraculous thing going on, this water into wine kind of miracle. You know, water into wine is a miracle I already believe in, but how do you explain going from a crucifixion to world domination? History is teaching to you a life from the dead thing. It is. It already is, right? You know how we inferred a Big Bang? We inferred a Big Bang because we observed an expanding universe, and we just hit the rewind button until you get to the 0 point, right? Look at the expanding universe of the church, the expanding universe of Christianity. There are more Christians today than there were yesterday, and there'll be more again the next day, and then more again the next day. Okay, we are this expanding universe. Wind back the clock, and you get to this point on Easter Sunday. Something was unleashed. There's been incredible spiritual power that has been unleashed, and you can trace it in human history. You can trace it in the heavens, you can trace it in history, but finally, If you want to believe that Jesus is Lord, look at him. That's what our passage is really encouraging us to do. These things are written so that you may believe. And look, this is what happened to me. I was reading through the Gospels myself, and I was looking at the towering personality of Jesus and his stooping love, and I saw in Jesus someone just so incredible. I remember getting halfway through Luke's Gospel. There's Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and this third biography of Jesus. And I saw the way that Jesus joins us in the valley of the shadow of death. He is not the God who yells down commandments from on high. He's the God who joins you in your suffering to be with you and to be for you, to befriend you, to love you. And I just saw this incredible, this conflation of might and mercy in Jesus. And I remember just thinking to myself, he's great, he's tops, he's number one, he's numero uno, he is Lord. He is Lord. And at some point, when you look at the character of Jesus, you do this calculation. You think to yourself, I know death is powerful. I know death always wins, but I think death has met its match in Jesus. You know how kids, they do that superhero game, you know, they go, who would win in a fight between Batman and Spider-Man, or who would win in a fight between the Iron Giants, and they think, you know, well, this guy's got all the technology, but this guy's got all the magic powers, and you think about who would win. Okay, let's do it. Let's do that with Jesus. Pick up a gospel. You've got these John's Gospels in your hands. These are our gifts to you. I want you to take these. I want you to take it away and read it. Open up, shoot up a prayer and say, Jesus, show yourself. It's a no-lose proposition. If he's not there, he's not going to show himself. But if he is there, I want you to pray, show me that you are Lord. Show me if you indeed are bigger than death. And as you read through, you will encounter this towering personality. And I want you to think, I know that the pandemic is raging. I know this is a suffering world. I know death always wins, but maybe this one. Maybe this one, he's the fulfillment of the heavens. Maybe this one, he's the fulfillment of history. Maybe this one really is Lord. Will you do that? Will you take up John's Gospel? Will you keep on reading? Will you shoot up that prayer? Because we all have to walk through the valley of the shadow. Don't do it alone. Do it with the God who joins you. Do it with the God who has war wounds, battle scars. He's gone to hell and back for you. He can get you through this pandemic. He can get you through this veil of tears. He can get you to the feasting joy because he is Lord.